Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's happening? What's good, Los Angeles? It's the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are on the LA Football Network, always on the Believe Podcast Network, and every Friday at 5 on the airways of AM the Mightier 1090. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Good weekend of football, depending what side of the aisle you're on, USC or UCLA. Great for UCLA, terrible for USC. We'll get into it. Chargers with a thriller at SoFi last night against the mighty Steel Curtain. Came out with a victory, so we will get into that one. Offense was back, lighting it up. Excited to break it down, tell you guys what was different this week than last week. So we're going to get into that, and yeah, we'll start with that. We'll finish with the SC UCLA game at the Collie. I call it the Collie. I got some hate for that. And I see all these old USC guys say, no one calls it the Collie, which, hey, that's fine. I call it the Collie. I heard back when I was in college at Long Beach State, the Petrus and Money show. I used to listen to it all the time. Don't listen to it as much anymore. Still love those guys, Matt Money Smith and Petrus Papadakis, but just don't have the time. And I work mostly from home now, so I'm not driving. But I heard one time on their show, Petros call it the Collie. Oh, it's going down at the Collie. Blah, 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 blah. So he was a former player at SC. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll call it the Collies. I've been calling it the Collie now for a long time. And just recently have been seeing people saying no one calls it the Collie. But anyway, I do. But we'll get into it. Show today brought to you by my friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Use the promo code LAFB to double your welcome bonus. That's free money, my friends. You can go and bet on this weekend's slate of games. I unfortunately lost, had a terrible parlay. That I think every team lost that I parlayed. I did not bet on the Charger game. I wanted to stay away from that to be safe. I was confident they were going to win. I picked them to win, but I didn't want to put money on it. But the games I did bet on did not go well. But anyway, for you, hopefully it fans out better. Go to mybookie.ag. Like I said, promo code LAFB. There's no better time than now with the holidays coming up. Win some extra scratch for those great presents for loved ones. Speaking of presents, head to LAFBnetwork.com. Go to our locker room. We got amazing merch. We've partnered with some players here in LA. Shirts, mugs, anything you need. We got Rams Brothers merch. USC, UCLA, Rams Chargers. Got it all there. LAFBnetwork.com, the LAFB locker room. And you can get some gifts there for Christmas for your favorite LA football fans. Sidetrack there, but yeah, mybookie.ag. Head there as well. For those of you that came out to Golden Road yesterday, thank you. It was great to meet some of you. Had some great beer. Hung out before the Charger-Pittsburgh game. Did a live show from there with the director, with Dan Wolkenstein of Chargers Unleashed, with my good buddy Will Decker, who does the Bruin Bible here on the network. It was a lot of fun hanging out. So thank you for those that came out. We'll be doing plenty more events. We're still planning on some tailgates as well this year, hanging out, whether we're at Thunder Alley for Chargers games or down in the pit for the Rams games. We're planning on being at both. So looking forward to things coming, much more events with Golden Road in the future. So thanks to those that came out. Let's get into this Chargers game. Final score, 41-37. And it was a thriller. At one point, the Chargers were up by 17 in classic Chargers fashion, blew a 17-point lead. The Steelers come roaring back to tie the game. Everyone, old Chargers fans, Chargers haters specifically, here we go again. Chargers are going to Charger. This is a different Chargers team. They are now, I believe, my good buddy Stephen Hagland, who is an editor here at the LA Football Network, I believe he's the one that tweeted this out, but in their last 8 or so games, one possession games, they're 5-3. So, starting to turn that corner of where they were losing every one possession game. And now we're seeing them finish these games And I know you never want to see a Super Bowl contending team give up a 17-point lead. That needs to be fixed and addressed. But things happen in NFL games that are unpredictable, and it's sometimes some fluky plays. You get a blocked punt where it was just a bad assignment with a 3-man blitz up the middle, and Drew Tranquill was the only guy to block all three. So that's a missed assignment. Blocked punt turns into a 4-play, 3-yard touchdown drive. That defense actually held them to 4th down. They did convert. And then you have a tipped pass by a player in Cameron Hare that should have been ejected from a previous play, which we'll get into. He ends up tipping it sky high to the rafters. He went over the Oculus down into a defender's arms. So they get in the red zone again and score on that one. There's your 14 points right there. So I'm not saying it's not the Chargers' fault that happened, but sometimes fluky things happen in the NFL, and it's about how you respond to that adversity and bounce back. And the Chargers did. Brandon Staley, Joe Lombardi, Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, all those guys. Mike Williams obviously had the touchdown pass. They responded in a way that championship caliber teams do. I'm still not ready to say this is a championship team yet. The future is extremely bright. Extremely bright. But I think this fan base, and rightfully so, built these expectations a little too quickly early in the season when the team started off 4-1, beat some good teams, played some really good football, then went 1-4 after that stretch, or 1-3 after that stretch, excuse me. And then it was like Super Bowl contenders, sky is falling. Where's Shane Steichen? Bring Anthony Lynn back. To now Super Bowl contenders. I think we're in that middle. We're a playoff team. The Chargers are a playoff team. Mark my words, they will make the playoffs this year. If they get guys back and they're healthy in January, this could be a contending team. They have the talent and the skill set to do it. It's a matter of if they'll be healthy come January and if they can correct some of the mistakes that we've seen them make over these last 4 weeks or so, which even last night, they corrected a lot of them, but there were still some issues. The punt, the blocked punt, stuff like that. A lot of penalties. I think they had 13 penalties. Can't have that. Little lapses of judgment and, defensive awareness. Can't have that in January in the playoffs. So I do think they're a playoff team. I don't know if I'm willing yet to say a true Super Bowl contender, but they're getting there. We just need to see it on a consistent basis. But overall, love what I saw from this team. The offense, everyone's got to be happy, right? 41 points from this offense after some stagnant weeks. Not a explosion of big plays, but I think this goes into what we've been talking about probably for 4 weeks now, about this offense and about Joe Lombardi. Everyone, when the offense is struggling and losing, is all out on Joe Lombardi. Horrible play calling. You have Justin Herbert. You're not pushing the ball down the field. Yada, 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 yada. We've talked a bunch. I'm not going to get into it again. The play calls have been there for the potential of the deep ball. But A, either Herbert checks it down. B, defenses are playing too high shell in coverage to, obviously they know that's what Herbert's good at. So they're going to defend that mechanism of his game. Or C, the play was there, but the offensive line didn't hold up quite long enough. So those three factors have gone into a lot of these big shots. Everyone calls it aggressiveness. It's like you don't have to be aggressive play caller and just throw the ball 50 yards every other possession. They went up tempo last night, but a lot of the play calling was very similar to what we've seen for these last 4 weeks. The execution was just 1,000 times better. The offensive line played better. They still had drops, but they were less critical drops. They had one critical one. I think Jared Cook had 2 or 3 drops in this game, and one of them was very critical late in the game that I think ended up, if I'm not mistaken, I got to go back and watch the film, but I think it but that was the drive that ended up being the blocked punt, whereas if he catches that, it's a first down, move the sticks. But outside of that, it wasn't like critical drops. Any drop is bad, but they were better in that category. Star players made star plays. Keenan Allen was a star player last night. Mike Williams was a star player again last night after disappearing for a few weeks. Austin Eckler, 4 touchdowns, was a star player last night. Justin Herbert just jumped back into the MVP conversation, a star player. On the defensive side, Derwin James, always a star player. Joey Bosa, star player. Didn't hear his name a lot throughout the game. Had a couple bad offsides, getting a little antsy. But when it mattered on the last drive, they schematically moved him inside. He gets the big sack, forcing a 4th and long, or I think it was 3rd and long at that point. Showed up when he had to. Star player show up. Asante Samuel Jr. showed up and then unfortunately went out with a concussion, his 2nd of the year. That's something we're going to have to monitor because that's a big deal. Concussions always should have been a big deal. They never really were. Now they're monitored much more closely. And when you have 2 in the same season as a rookie, that's something to monitor, not something great we want to see. Obviously, his health is most important. But football-wise, he was playing as a star before he went out. We saw the Steelers be able to move the ball better against the secondary once he went out. There was a shift almost in the game. That's when they were up 17 points. ASJ goes out, and you see the Steelers start making this comeback. Again, 2 fluke plays led to that. But the offense before was kind of moving the ball a little better too, and everyone starts freaking out. That's a big loss to your secondary. We talked last week. Tevin Campbell, everyone wants him gone. He did not play good. He got burned many times by Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. But he's not built to be your corner 2. Or last week pretty much became corner 1. He's a depth piece. And so then when he got thrust in again last night after ASJ went out, struggled a little bit against their top-tier guys, Deontay Johnson and guys of that caliber. But if you're asking him to cover, their 3rd or 4th receiver, that's what his role is. And I know it's, if we're going to praise the guy for doing that, we got to criticize him for playing bad. But that's why we saw some struggle there. But anyway, the star players showed out, and that's why the Chargers won this game. Brandon Staley says it all the time. Star players have to make plays to win. And last night, the Chargers star players made more plays than the Steelers star players. Defensive line. Let's talk about that real quick. You're missing Linval Joseph and Jerry Tillery. Linval Joseph has been great this year. Let's not beat around the bush on that. He's been fantastic in the interior for this Chargers team. Jerry Tillery has been very up and down. Some games you're like, okay, there's that talent flashing. Some games it's the same frustration, head scratching that we've seen so far in his early career. Last night you move up. You've had Braden Fuhoko come up. You have the fan favorite Forrest Merrill come up. Guys that have been cut multiple times, put on the practice squad, going up and down, the roster and the active roster and whatnot. And they, out of the interior, almost played their best game. Najee Harris, one of the bright young running backs in this league. And the Steelers' offense that goes through their running game with Big Ben at 39 years old is not the same as what it used to be. It helped the Chargers' offense got off to such a big lead. They kind of had to abandon the run. But still, this offense predicates on the running game. Najee Harris was held to 39 yards on 12 carries. 3.2 yards a clip. That's fantastic from this defense. People will see the score, 37 points, and want to nitpick the defense. But overall, their weakness was not a weakness last night. And you have guys playing from the practice squad starting in Fihoko and Merrill. And they held one of the bright young backs in this game, a good offensive line, not what it usually is for the Steelers, but still a solid unit, to 3.2 yards per carry. That's exciting. That's been what this defense and what Brandon Staley has wanted it to become. Stout against the run, great in the secondary. I say it all the time, this too high shell is going to force offenses to run the ball. And so you're always going to be a little bit skewed statistically on your passing stats versus running stats, because a smart offense should run the ball on this defense. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on those down linemen and those linebackers to play the run well, to man up, hat for hat, and play it well. And they haven't done that up to this point, being the worst rush defense in the NFL. Well, these last 2 weeks going against Dalvin Cook and now Najee Harris, that narrative has skewed. And the Chargers' run defense has looked a lot better. A lot better. And it's something to get excited about as a Chargers fan, because when your weakness is no longer the greatest weakness and is starting to become a strength almost, last night it was a strength. That shows phenomenal coaching. That shows culture buy-in. And that shows now players understanding the scheme and their role within it. And you're getting that out of backups. I mean, Linval is going to be back and he's going to start because he should. But we may not see Jerry Tillery on the field as much going forward if those guys keep balling out like they just did. They deserve the reps over Jerry Tillery at this point. And I've said it in the offseason, and we've seen some lackluster moves, in my opinion, and many's opinion, since training camp. But I've said all along, Brandon Staley will play the best players. He does not care about draft stock, the name on the back of the jersey, the price tag that you're getting in the bank. He will play the best players to fit his scheme. I think we've seen some interesting calls made after training camp of guys cut and roster, additions and subtractions. But I'd be very shocked if we don't start seeing a lot more of Braden Fehoko and Forrest Merrill moving forward, at least in a bigger rotation. Now, obviously, you're not going to carry 7 interior defensive linemen on the active roster. So we'll see what happens when Jerry's and Linval's back. But hats off to those guys. Thought they played great. On short notice, moving up and down the roster like they did, and they came out and balled out. Linebacking core played well in their stead as well. So I think the defense overall played pretty good. Again, you'll see that 37-point total and think differently, but when you really look at how the game went, they had some miscues, but overall played well. So that's exciting. Back to this offense before we move on from this game. I saw a lot of, obviously we're on Twitter, and that's kind of how we follow these games now, is like live. It's kind of like being in a sports bar, right? Like everyone's hanging out in the sports bar, talking about the game live. People are giving their takes, saying their frustrations, saying their joys. I think Twitter's a little more volatile. I think some things people say on there, they wouldn't say in person at a bar, but you still get a sense of what people are thinking, whether that's good or bad. I saw a lot of stuff when the Chargers were up in 27-10, or maybe it was even after that. Maybe when it was 34, whatever. They were up like 17 points, 14 points. Their next possession, they got the ball, ran the ball, gained 5 yards, ran the ball, came up short, pass. I think that was when there was a drop pass, ended up having to punt. And I saw multiple tweets of Chargers deserve to lose. Winners go for the throat. They don't play it safe or play not to lose. You play to win. I hate that. I hate that statement. Especially because it's just not true. There are instances, of course, in football games you can say that's playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win. Staley has said, we've heard him in his, post-game victory speeches, we're not here to participate. We're here to compete. We're here to win. But you also don't want to be stupid. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into winning a football game. The Chargers ran, let's take out Justin Herbert's runs, which I haven't even got into. And I'm going to talk about that before we wrap up this segment, because that's a very exciting layer now to this offense that defense have to prepare for. But take away Justin Herbert's runs. He had 9 total runs for 90 yards, most of his career. Of those 9, I believe there was 1 designed run, maybe 2. The other ones were just, dropping back in the pocket. Nothing was open right away. Had a lot of space, kind of like we see with Mahomes, took off and run. So it wasn't designed for him to run, but he's athletic enough that, hey, coaches have probably told him a lot this week. If there's space, take it. Look at what Mahomes does with the Chiefs. The guy has 40 yards rushing every game. It's not any design runs. It's just they run everyone out there, and he has 40 yards of free space to run. But you take out his 9 carries. Austin Eckler ran the ball 11 times. Larry Roundtree twice. Justin Jackson once. So from your 3 backs, you had 14 total carries. In a game, you're up by 17 points at some point. 14 carries from your running backs. Now, the offense was dynamic. It was fun to watch. Herbert was slinging it. So I'm not saying I'm not criticizing that at all. But when you come out after scoring and the offense is going very well, and now you're in the fourth quarter, you need to bleed that clock a little bit. You get 5 yards on the first run. That's not playing to not lose by running the football. Watch the teams that compete for championships. They can run the damn football. The Chiefs, who have been back-to-back Super Bowls, last year they got destroyed because they had no running game. They had a weak offensive line, and they put it all in the passing hands of Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the game probably. And they got lit up in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers because the Bucs knew that's what they were going to do. We're going to play you 2 high shell, Tampa 2. Not let anyone get behind us. We're going to get pressure with our 4. If you're not going to run the football, great. That's great for us. So yes, all of that had been working for the Chargers, dropping back 40 times with Herbert, not running as much, and it was great. It was exciting. Fans, I would hope, would say, okay, cool, this is aggressive, this is fun. But then to flip and play heel after 2 rushes when you're up 17 in the fourth quarter, saying that's playing not to lose, wholeheartedly disagree. You get some valuable clock off. Obviously, you would like to see that turn into a first down. You're averaging over 5 yards a carry. So it's not like they ran it 11 times and had like 11 yards. That created 50 yards and 11 carries. They were gashing the defense on some of those runs. So it wasn't like it was just so unsuccessful that they like, okay, let's just not go for that. It was working the few times they ran. And to be a balanced attack, you have to be a balanced attack. That sounds so cliche to say, but you don't win in this league throwing the ball 50 times a game. You can win a game throwing the ball 50 times. You don't win, run off these 5, 6, 7 game winning streaks throwing the ball 50 times a game. You have to run the football to keep the defense honest, to force the defense to play physical, and you wear them down. And in the fourth quarter, that's when you can really bite. So I have zero problem last night with them on that possession in the fourth quarter, midway through, going run, pass. I know everyone hears run, pass, and they think of the Anthony Lynn, Shane Steichen era. Even that narrative, in my opinion, is not true. They ran the ball less than the Rams did last year. They passed the ball almost 57% of the time. Now, obviously, situationally is very different because you have some games, if you're having a lead, you're obviously going to run more. Some games you're behind, you're going to pass more. So it comes down to situationally, but just on an overall scale, the Chargers ran the ball last year less than the Rams. And everyone knows the Rams are the pass-first team, which a lot of Rams fans hate. Any Rams fans listening, they want to run the ball more, especially when it's working. So I'll put a bow on it with that. Have zero problem with any play calling last night. I thought Joe Lombardi called a fantastic game, and you just see it that way when it's executed correctly. Because again, fans want to see the big play. I get it. It's fun. Herbert has a cannon arm. We actually saw it a lot more last year this year. What this new offense does is it's efficient. It runs quickly. It throws a ton at the defense mentally to think about. It wears them down. And then when the time permits, it opens things up for a big play, a kill shot, which is what we saw last night. You had efficient short passes last night a lot. Had some chunk plays, 15 to 20 yards when you needed them. But overall, it was a very efficient, low, high percentage throws, high percentage completions. And then when it mattered, when the game was tied in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, you see a coverage breakdown because they're expecting the same efficient pass. Mike Williams wide open for a 50-yard touchdown pass. What's there to complain about? The offense put up 41 points. They were fantastic. They ran the ball efficiently. Again, I would like to see them run them more, but I'm not going to complain. Justin Herbert was efficient, looked comfortable, trusted his receivers, even with a couple drops. And then when it mattered, you get the big play touchdown on Mike Williams. It's beautiful. It's poetry. When the offense is run like that and it's executed as well as it was last night, it's poetry and it's fun to watch. So I'm sick of this hearing about Joe Lombardi and horrible play calling. He's been calling great. And I'll say it again. He called last night very, very similar to what we've seen over the 4 weeks. It's not like all of a sudden everything changed and wow, Lombardi, good for him. He's been calling the game the same, but just executed better. Is what I've been saying. I love these players. Justin Herbert's one of the best in the league. Is going to be an MVP candidate for a long time. They just didn't play as good the last 4 weeks. Last night, the offense played better. A lot better. I said on our pregame show at Golden Road, I said, if Mike Williams and Keenan Allen combine for 17.5 catches, the Chargers will win this game. They got to 14. So not quite there, but they got to 14. 112 yards for Keenan Allen, 97 yards for Mike Williams. So didn't quite get to my 17.5, but hey, they were heavily involved was the point I was getting at. I also said on defense, we need to see production from someone besides Joey Bosa. Everyone's harping on him. But things are going to open up for him if we get production from Kyler Fackrell and Uchenna Nwosu. I said, I think both of them are going to have a game combined for 2.5 sacks. Well, they had 2. They each had 1. At critical moments, too, when it really mattered. So, great win for the Chargers. Offense was clicking. Again, throw out the score. The defense, I thought, played very good. Not top 5 yet by any means. They still have a lot of work to do. But there was a lot of improvement I saw. A lot of improvement. They were good in key situations. They were a little better on third down. Still need to improve that area. I think they went Steelers went for 8 for 14. So still need improvement there. But overall, I thought they played a lot better. So great win for the Chargers. Great win, Chargers fans. Back to the division. Denver next week. In Denver. Denver coming off a bye. We'll get into that, this whole week. I got a bunch of friends. Obviously, everyone knows I'm from Denver originally. I like the Chargers in this game, but we'll get into it more throughout the week. I got a bunch of good media buddies out in Denver who we'll have on. Maybe we'll have a few on and get their takes and have some fun with it. So let's shift gears to this, the Victory Bell, UCLA and USC. We were at the tailgate. Myself, Will Decker, Jamal Madney, Corey Paz, my man, met up with him, former UCLA quarterback. Some former Trojans players we met up with. So a lot of fun at the tailgate at the Coliseum, Coliseum, whatever, drinking Golden Road. The game itself. Let's get the, I'm not going to harp too much on USC. I know everyone wants to be doom and gloom. Sky is falling. Was this that shocking if you're an SC fan? I think giving up 62 points is probably a little shocking. The most ever in this game by UCLA. So I think that is definitely a kind of where the doom and gloom comes from. I don't think a lot of SC fans, if they're being honest, expected to win this game. Just the state of where this program's at currently. So let's look at the bright stuff, though, right? For the future, Jackson Dart is going to be a very good quarterback for this team. He did not look fully comfortable out there, whether it was a health issue. He was always a little bit gimpy. So I don't know if he just didn't trust his knee that he's coming back from surgery. If it was actually a lingering issue, I like to think these coaches and the staff have his best interest at heart, considering he is a freshman. He is going to be the quarterback of this team moving forward, and they wouldn't put him out there if he wasn't 100%. So I think more so it's more mental. And he was getting beat up back there. UCLA was sending a lot of, organic and exotic blitzes at him and hitting him a lot in the backfield. So he was getting beat up. But I think it was more mental, just didn't really trust. When you come back from a big injury, especially a knee injury, and probably his first in his career, there's some doubt in your mind. Like, oh, if I plant wrong, like I'm going to be a little ginger. I don't want to hit that hard plant because what if I re-injure it? So I think that was probably more so what went into it. From what I've heard, nothing re-injured or anything like that thus far. They usually don't tell us much till Wednesday or so. But Dart's going to be good. He finished, 27-47, 325 yards, did have 2 picks, had a real nice touchdown. So you be excited about that. Take away this game. Be excited to say, okay, we know we have a really good young quarterback. That when we get this new coaching staff in, he's going to have a full off season to get out, to get fully healthy, be with this receiving core as the starter, as the guy. He's your prototypical SC quarterback, big, strong, good looking, huge arm, good, just all that checks all the boxes. So be excited about that. Running game. Who knows from this running back room who will be back next year, but it was still pretty efficient. Keontae Ingram, 5.6 yards per carry, 17 carries for 96 yards. Played pretty good. UCLA had the number 2 rush defense in the Pac-12. They were bad against the pass. They're pretty good against the run. Levi had 3 touchdowns, 49 yards. So you still put up almost 200 yards on the ground. So I'd take that away. That's good. Gary Bryant Jr., young receiver that kind of will probably become the number 1 guy with Drake London, most likely going to the draft next year. 9 for 161 and a touchdown. Take that good away. He's going to be one of your pillars next season in that receiving room. Had a fantastic game. Looked very explosive. Got behind the secondary a lot. Made some big catches. So that's good. Defensively, not much good. I don't think we're going to talk much about the defense. Basically, you got to look at it as you have Kalen Bullock and you have Corey Foreman as your staples on D heading in the next year. So you have great talent there. Guys that played a lot of snaps this year. They can go in the next year with this new look defense, hopefully, new coaching staff, and build around them. Kalen Bullock on the back end, Corey Foreman on the front end, and then go from there. That's kind of all I'm going to say of the defense, because you give up 62 points, there's not much good we can take from it. So take good that you have some talent there to build around. And we'll see how this new coaching staff comes in and who they recruit this season. Because I'm assuming I hope we hear a hire in December. It's tough because they're going to be getting a coach that's coaching right now. And I personally like coaches that finish with their teams. I know you want to get a jump on the recruiting trail, but I personally like it if hey, behind closed doors, I want to be here. I'm your guy. I'm finishing the season out, though. I want to be there for my guys that I recruited at this program for a bowl game. So if it's a Luke Fickell, which is my guy, fight on Fickell, right? That's who I want. If it's him, if it's a James, if it's not James, if it's Franklin, any of those guys, I think they'll finish their years with their program and then start, depending what bowl game they're in. I mean, if it's Fickell, he could be in the, New Year's 6 playing for a playoff. But we'll get more into coaching talk then. So let's, bad game by USC. It's a rough season. Take the positives. You have a lot of good young core talent moving in the next year. UCLA, it's interesting covering this because I cover both teams. So it's like, who do I talk more about in this situation? UCLA. Exciting game. 62 points from this offense. Still gave up 33 on defense, but that's not surprising. How this defense is. We'll get into here later. But as an offense, I mean, that's exciting seeing especially how it started with the adversity. DTR throwing 2 picks early, right off the bat. First 2 possessions ended with 2 interceptions from DTR. And you think, oh, man, as a UCLA fan, oh, man, here we go. It's going to be a long game. We're the better team. UCLA is going to spoil any chances we have at a Pac-12 title, which I think are gone now anyway with Utah stomping Oregon. ASU lost, though. It's crazy. ASU lost. If Oregon could have done their job and beat Utah, all of a sudden next week looks like UCLA has a shot at the Pac-12 South. But I don't think they do now with Utah and how good they look right now, too. But either way, no matter what, you want to beat your crosstown rival. And so it started off shaky. Luckily, the defense in those situations held up and did not give up points or at least touchdowns to SC. So they came up clutch when they needed it. And then it allowed time for the offense to get rolling. And rolling they did. DTR finishing with 349 yards passing, 46 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns through the air, 2 on the ground. 6 total touchdowns for DTR. I know there's mixed emotions on DTR. I feel like you talk to half the fan base. They love the guy. They see what he's given to this program. He's been here for 4 years, and half the fan base probably hates him and can't wait for him to be gone. Not because of who he is as a person by any means, but just for his kind of up and down play, untimely turnovers. But from this game, 100% of Bruins Nation should just stand up and applaud this young man because of how well he played. Again, 2 interceptions early. Didn't phase him whatsoever. Balls out the rest of the game. 6 touchdowns against your rival in USC. I don't care how bad USC's defense is this year. You put up 6 touchdowns in a rivalry game for the victory bell on the big stage, away, not at home, away at the Coliseum. That's what it's all about. And that's great. That's great. So, fantastic game and what will probably be his last one against this team as he prepares for the draft, I would assume, next year. I did hear, he does have 1 year of eligibility, surprisingly, even though he is a senior. So I don't know exactly how that works. I need to look into it more. I heard that right before I went on recording. Someone texted me. So I need to look into that more. That's something I never even thought about all year. You figure 4th year starter, he's a senior. He wasn't a red shirt. He started as a freshman. So I don't know if it's because of the COVID year. Everyone got an extra year, even though he played. They kind of give everyone an extra year because of the COVID year, which I'm assuming that's what it is, but I can look more and confirm that later. But it was exciting to see I talked about the Chargers game, but star players made star plays. Zach Charbonnet was one of the best players on the field. 167 yards and a touchdown, 6-yard per carry average. If the Bruins can somehow convince him to come back next year, that would be a huge comeback because he is so damn good. So good. I think he's one of the best backs in the nation. I can't see him coming back because if he goes to the draft, he'll be an early day 2 pick. Maybe even day 1, but I think it's so rare nowadays to see running backs go that early. But day 2, I could see him being like a Javonte Williams out of North Carolina last year when he was the first back taken on day 2 in the 2nd round. He has a lot of tread because of his usage this year. I mean, he had 28 carries on Saturday, but that was rare early in the season. He was starting off the season with 10 carries, 11 carries, and he still went over 1,000 yards. You just watch him play, the explosiveness. Not only can he, stand you up between the tackles, but he's shifty in between the tackles, and then he can burn you with his speed. He's got every trait you want from a running back. Every trait you want from a running back. So he's going to be very good at the next level, or if he somehow decides to come back to UCLA, everyone should be ecstatic that they get to watch him one more season. Receiving core, DTR did a great job distributing the ball. We saw a breakout game from Kazmir Allen, who had 2 touchdowns and a return touchdown. Kyle Phillips continues to be, the man of this unit. 6 receptions, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I've tweeted out before, but he's going to make an NFL team extremely happy. He is not getting talked about as a top receiver, which, I don't think he'll ever get talked about as a top receiver just because he doesn't have that crazy speed, that crazy size of what, people look for. But the production's there. The willingness and ability to block is there. He's got great hands. He's a tactician route runner, and he can do it in the return game. He's been their punt returner all year long. Has some big returns, some touchdowns in the return game. So I think right now he's probably a 3rd round pick. Could even slip to the 4th round. But whatever team he goes to, he's going to make very happy. And I think he'll be productive pretty early. Because everyone will call him, that maybe it's because he's white. I don't know. It seems to be the trend. But they'll call him, the Cooper Kupp, the, Wes Welker, the Danny Amendola, like that savvy technical slot guy. Now, he will probably play in the slot just because he's not a 6'5" frame with like 4.3 speed, like nowadays is what's coming out. But he's bigger than those guys outside of Cooper. He literally is identical to Cooper Kupp, like size and skill set. He's got the same frame, but if and Cooper Kupp drafted in those mid rounds. So if Kyle Phillips can become that, wow. I would love him to stay in LA and get with one of these Chargers or Rams teams because I think he would fit right in. I know the Rams, it's like, oh, you can't draft another receiver, but with contract years and what's going on, why wouldn't you want to add another one like that? And for the Chargers, who knows what's going to happen with Mike Williams' contract? Completely different receivers. But if you can add a Kyle Phillips to your lineup and that all of a sudden for both these teams can be a return guy, that's a home run to me. But he's going to make a team very happy. He's been so fun to watch, just a staple of consistency. And so good. So overall, great team win for this Bruins team. They get the victory bell back for the first time since 2018. Saw Martin Jarmon talking, and they are painting it blue as we speak, as we record this. So we'll be painted blue, Bruin blue here very soon, which I'm sure we'll see stuff posted. Before we wrap this show up, though, I want to talk about Chip Kelly. Coming into not just this game, probably the last few weeks, I think it's been, I don't even want to say split. I think it's been like 60-40, maybe even 70-30 of the fan base wanting Chip fired and moving on to someone else. And you get those 30 to 40% saying, no, we've seen improvement every single year. We're in the midst of a 7-win season now. Could be 8 and a bowl victory. You got to see what he's building, give him more recruits, yada, yada, yada. I'm on the camp of the latter. And Jamal Madney, one of our writers, put up a great article on the LAFB Network. Head there if you haven't read it, LAFBnetwork.com, about why the Bruins should retain Chip Kelly. It's a long-form article. It does a lot of research, a lot of not just a fan's opinion. It gives you facts, gives you percentages, gives you reasons why he should be retained and why he's their best option. Not just why he should be retained, but like fans are quick to say, oh, fire him. Well, who's going to be better to replace him? And that's what I want to get into real quick. First, what I kind of just said. The Bruins have gotten better every year under Chip Kelly. I know it took a lot longer than people wanted it to, but every single year they've improved. Last year, the COVID year, still a losing season, but you could see they were close. Every game, one possession game, they were competitive in every game. And now this year, start off with a huge hype with the Hawaii win, the LSU win. Then it kind of comes crashing back down to earth. Then some more big wins. They still didn't win the big games this year. They didn't beat bad loss to Fresno State. That should have been a win, but they couldn't beat the Utahs, couldn't beat the Arizona States. Would have mattered. Big Pac-12 games that they needed to win. Couldn't get there, but they beat USC. Beat USC. Now Chip is 2-2 against USC. So that's a check mark. That's good. They're bowl eligible for the first time in his tenure. That's good. If they beat Cal next week, you get to 8 wins for the first time in a long time. That's good. And the biggest thing that I'll talk about that people need to kind of think about, and even if you don't like Chip Kelly, you need to think with reason sometimes. The opening jobs right now, and there's going to be more that come, but the big-time opening jobs right now, you have USC, obviously, which is your crosstown rivals. You're competing with them if they were to move on. USC. LSU, which some would argue is the best job in the country. Florida now. Dan Mullen was just fired. Those 3 alone are going to be attracting big-time coaches. So UCLA is, let's just say what it is, they're not going to get the caliber of coach that those 3 will. Then you're going to have smaller programs. They're going to fire their coaches. They are going to be in direct competition with UCLA and their coaching sirs. You have other mid-tier programs. You have NFL teams that will have openings that some people from college will jump to. So, when you look at the state of UCLA right now and where they are as a program, Chip Kelly has built something better every single year. And who's to say if you fire him, who are you going to get that's better? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think Chip Kelly deserves at least another year. Now, do you extend him long term? I mean, it depends on the buyout deals and whatnot with that. I think you make a real hard stipulation if you're Martin Jarman to say, hey, I believe in you, but we got to make changes on defense. I know you're like best friends, college roommates, Jerry Azanero. You guys have been tied to a hip your entire coaching career, but we cannot get to where we want to be as a program with him as our DC. I think that needs to change. If Chip can get in a comparable, better defensive coordinator that can run the defense, make them even a top 30 unit, just not 110th, and let Chip do what he's been doing on offense, which is offense. The offense has been really good every year. It's just defensively they've been bad, and then consistency has been bad. Then this can become a really good program. I mean, think of someone like Jimmy Lake. Just got fired from Washington. Great defensive coordinator, not a great head coach. Think if you can get him to come to Westwood, be your DC. Some of these other schools that just fired their head coaches, your LSUs, your Floridas, these schools are going to have a bunch of coaches that need jobs next year. Get one of their defensive guys to come over and be a defensive coordinator. Then maybe it sounds better having Chip Kelly back. If you have a better defensive guy, Chip can keep doing what he's building on offense. And the future of this program, I think, looks a lot better than starting over from scratch and entering yourself in that pool of already great programs looking for head coaches. If we were sitting here right now and no one had been fired, I still am in the camp regardless. Chip should be back. I mean, you're at 7 wins now, potentially 8 in a bowl game. I think he's done enough this year. I said preseason, if he can win 7 to 8 games and win a bowl game, he'll be back. So I still believe that. But just playing the other side of it, if we're at this point and no one had been fired, Clay Helton's still at SC, Ed Ogeron's still retained at LSU, Dan Mullen's still at Florida, these other schools that I said are going to fire, then it's like, okay, well, maybe they would have a good shot to get a good upgrade. If they're the biggest program there with an opening and no one else is competing with them, yeah, maybe then it would be a shot. But now you're competing with these big-time football schools. UCLA is a great history, a good football school. I think they can be great. They have the ability to be great, but in the last 20 years, they've been a decent to good, if we're being honest. I mean, in reality, they're probably bad to decent, if we're being honest. Great basketball school, great culture, great academics, great campus, great lifestyle. But just at football, where a head coach is looking to win championships or use it as a stepping stone to get to the next level where he can win championships. At this point, you're not attracting one of those. Dave Arenado is not going from Baylor to UCLA. He's just not at this point. Who's one of the hot names? Luke Fickell's not going from Cincinnati to UCLA. Jonathan Franklin's not going from Penn State to UCLA. So who is out there that is an upgrade over what Chip Kelly has now built? That you're not going to be starting over and having another 3-year rebuild. I don't see anyone out there. I don't see a single name that the UCLA could get that can come in next year and win 9 to 10 games. Chip Kelly next year can win 9 to 10 games. Hopefully beyond. Chip Kelly next year, with what he's built, the culture he's built, especially if they replace the defensive coordinator, can win 9 to 10 games next year. What other coach can UCLA bring in that they can do that? Name me one. Name me one. Hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. Respond in the comments below. Let's put a bow on it on that. I've been talking too much already. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the LA Football Podcast. Make sure to check out Golden Road Brewery, our friends. Fantastic beer located right here in Los Angeles. They have a LA pub, an Anaheim pub, and a Huntington Beach pub if you want to go in person. They're sold in every store across the Southland. You can't miss them. Great, mango carts. They got good IPAs. They got a great Golden State Cerveza. So make sure to check them out. Check out my friends at mybookie.ag. Use the promo code LAFB for a 50% or double your welcome bonus, whatever you want to call it. Check out LAFBnetwork.com. Great articles up on there. And follow all of our accounts at LAFB Network. If you're on YouTube watching and you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. Certainly helps us out as a network, helps myself out. So we certainly appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy your rest of your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever you're listening to this. We'll have stuff up for you all week. Rams fans, we're back in action this week after the bye. So we'll have plenty all week. I know we didn't touch on it on this episode, but we'll have plenty all week leading up to their next game. A big one against Green Bay, who just dropped a big game to the Vikings. So enjoy your Monday. I'm Ryan Dyrud. This is the LA Football Show. Peace.